When I started making games, I did everything wrong. I've wasted months on wrong projects, overcomplicated features, and honestly, I was just stuck in tutorial hell. And if I had to do that again from scratch, this is exactly what I would do to finish a game and avoid years of frustration. Game development is such a fun process because there's so many things to game development. There's so many hats to wear, so many different projects to make, and everyone has their own sort of style and own sort of games that they like to make. But nevertheless, there's still a lot of common mistakes that beginners are making that they can avoid to help them get farther in their process. So let's talk about some of those mistakes that beginners are actually making. If you're a beginner and you're making some of those mistakes, it's not the end of the world. I don't want you to feel targeted. I don't want you to feel attacked, feel like you're not a good game developer, because these are all mistakes that I have made. And this isn't pointing out a mistake, and it might not be a mistake for you, but there are definitely some better ways to go about this practice. So let's start off with number one, watching too many tutorials and not doing enough. Guys, when I was getting into game development, that's all I'd done. I watched tutorials all day, every day. I mean, there's so much to learn. It's overwhelming the amount of things that you can learn when it comes to game development. So it makes sense to watch a lot of tutorials. And I'm not saying watching tutorials is bad, but when you're watching this many and not actually acting on it, that's when it becomes counterproductive. So if game development is something that you're really interested in getting into and you haven't yet, then take the first step. You don't need to know what you're doing, but just taking that first step and trying to apply things that you've learned from tutorials is going to help you get to a better spot than if you're just watching a bunch and trying to master everything before actually doing it. And going into number two, overcomplicating projects. Guys, I want to tell you about my first project that I ever wanted to make. I was planning on making an MMO RPG. It was first person 3D. Like, I've never made a game before, and that was the first game I was trying to make. I had no practice in coding. I had no art skills. I couldn't make any 3D assets, and I refused to buy anything from the Unity asset store. So what did that leave me with? That left me with months of frustration and not knowing how to make anything. I did learn a few things from it, but I could have learned a lot more if I went and just made simpler projects and simply built my skill levels higher as I went on. And hopping into number three, this is kind of more of when you're actually ready to release a game, and maybe this is a step I should still learn, but it's ignoring marketing. Everybody has their own goal when it comes to game dev. We're not all out here trying to be the next Stardew Valley, Undertale, and be this blow up indie game. Some of us just love to do it. Others of us want to make a career out of it. We're all here for our own reasons. But if you do want to release a successfully commercial video game, then you can't ignore marketing. It's better to get your Steam page up as soon as possible and just start getting those wish lists. And for this last mistake that a lot of beginners are making, it's bad scope management. And honestly, I think we all have this. I think it's fun to want to like include a bunch of things to your game, and that's kind of like the fun part about making games. It's making features and including a bunch of stuff. But if you continue to want to make more features for your game, you're just never going to finish it. And as much as learning to make games is important, but also learning to finish them is just as important. So it's important that we actually are able to handle our scope and what we're including in our game documents and just overall what we want to put into our game. So now that we have some of the common mistakes that beginners are making, let's talk about some ways that they can do better. And stepping right into it is making smaller games. Like I said, my first game that I wanted to make was a big 3D MMO multiplayer first person game and honestly, I was never going to be able to make that. So if you're just starting and you want to get better, just make smaller games. Think Flappy Bird. I mean, whatever happened to Mario? Why did we all of a sudden want to start making a bunch of 3D MMO games? Like, I miss the good old days where we wanted to make Mario and Zelda clones, but nevertheless, it's easier for you to start on smaller projects. For example, I think a really good schedule is trying to make a game within a week, and if you can do that, do it in 2 weeks, and if you can do that, do it in a month. And slowly building up your skill set and being able to make more and add more to your game is going to make you a way better developer, and you're going to get a lot more progress done in a shorter amount of time than if you decided you wanted to make a game that took 7 years to develop. And going into step number two, it's mastering your skill. Everybody has their own skills, everyone has their own style. I mean, making games is making art. and everyone has their own style in any sort of art form. So I think it's a good idea for you to find out what yours is. And in terms of game dev, it's going to be kind of what your tool of choice is. So your tool of choice can be many things. It could be game engines, art tools, coding. It can be an assortment of things. So I think it's best for you to find your own skill of what you like to practice, whether it be art, 3D art, maybe you like to do coding. You can always do art with coding. And I think it's important for you to find out what you like to do and for you to specialize in it and make that your style. And for the third one, kind of going back to step one, it's making a progression of games. This one isn't as necessary, but I think it's a really good path if you're not really sure what to make and you kind of want to make smaller games to learn. I think kind of going along this path is a great idea. So instead of you starting off in game development, making your dream game, it's kind of better to go from something like Pong to a platformer to a small commercial game to then maybe your dream game. But taking these small baby steps is going to make you way better at game development 10 times faster than if you were just hop into your dream game today. And that brings me to step number 4, and you just got to learn to show your work. There's hundreds of ways to show your work now on the internet. Personally, I like to do mine through YouTube, but you can do yours in an assortment of ways. There's a bunch of different platforms out there like Pinterest, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, whatever you're on. You should be able to show your games wherever you want, and you should get into the habit of it. Start growing or even join a community where you can show off your games and start getting feedback. Getting feedback is one of the most important things as a game developer, and it helps you grow immensely. But don't get stuck in the loop of everything having to be perfect. Just show off what you have. It's okay if it's like programmer art or if it's not finished yet. I think honestly just showing off is such a good practice to have as a game developer. And that leads me into step number 5, is just to focus on the fun of your game and not focus on the features. I have a really good quote for this that I think sums this up entirely. You can add 100 features to your game, but your players aren't going to be able to use them if they're not having fun playing your game. I know for us game developers, it's so much fun to add features to your game. It feels so good. And then when you actually add them, you get that dopamine rush of adding a feature to your game. It feels like leveling up almost. It's not entirely fun for the player if they're not having fun using the feature. On top of that, just adding features to a game doesn't make your game fun automatically. So if you ever do actually want a commercial success, you need to actually prioritize the fun of the game rather than the features that you're adding. For a little bonus for you guys, I wanted to include some things that I wish someone would have told me when I was learning. Making games isn't about knowing everything. Although it's a daunting task and it feels like you need to know everything going into it, making games is more about finishing them and then improving as you go along. You don't need to know how to code, how to make art, or anything like that to make a game, but just improving and knowing how to finish a game is going to be way more valuable than actually learning how to code or make art. And if you're just starting today, don't worry about being perfect. Just start. Make something small, finish it, and then move on. And if you guys want to see me apply these lessons in real time, then consider subscribing and possibly joining the Discord. I'm making a game right now and I'm documenting the entire process. I also have a Discord that's filled with a bunch of other game devs, so if you feel like connecting with a bunch of other game devs and asking for help, the link to join is in the description below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.